afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Develop Croydon Investor Tour. This is our second virtual tour this year, and we're really excited to be showing you a new innovative way of how we're going to be talking you through Croydon's investment and development opportunities and some of the exciting highlights that have been taking place since we last brought you to Croydon in May. This tour is brought to you by Develop Croydon, a community interest company with over 70 members, developers, investors, occupiers, who all work collaboratively to promote Croydon as a place. You can see the breadth and the weight of the partnership from the logos on the screen now. These are our current full members of the Develop Croydon Forum, and the current associate membership is about to appear on the screen. So on our investor tours, we traditionally offer a delicious breakfast at Box Park and then take delegates on a private tram ride around the town centre, a coach tour of the commercial tour and the Purley Way, and a short walk around the town centre. On our first tour in May, we recreated this experience with a combination of photography and Google Street Views, but this time we've innovated still further, and working with a locally based company, Heads Above the Clouds, we've created a full virtual tour for you to enjoy. And the tour will also be available on the Develop Croydon website for you to have a look around shortly. So before we start the proper tour, there's just a couple of items of sort of logistics. I'll be appearing at the moment in a small box in front of your presentation. You can move that box around, and it's probably best to keep it bottom right corner of the screen so we don't interfere too much with you seeing the lovely views we're going to show you. If you've got any questions during the tour, please write them in the Q&A and we will endeavour to cover them. But we will be going really quickly through the tour, much like the real events. So please get in touch afterwards with any questions or further details that you would like to know about. And you can find contact details on the Develop Croydon website. So to welcome you to the tour, I'd like to introduce Richard Plant, who's Chair of Develop Croydon, and I'll now hand over to Richard to get us going. Richard.
Thanks very much. Welcome to our 18th Investor Tour of Croydon. I'm, in addition to being Chairman of Develop Croydon, I'm also a partner at SHW, running both the Croydon office and the development division of SHW. As Bonnie's mentioned, Develop Croydon is a private sector partnership that was founded in April 2011. So we're now in our 10th year. It was founded by 8 original members, which was Berkeley, Barratt, Guildhouse Rose Pride, Mentor, SHW, Sinclair Clark, and Stanhope and Schroders. It was a response to the need to help and assist and promote Croydon's regeneration. All the members are either based in Croydon, like SHW, or have significant projects in Croydon, such as Hub. We collectively promote Croydon as a location in which to invest, work and live, with the common goal of trying to secure more regeneration and economic renewal in Croydon. I personally have lived in Croydon for over 25 years now, and that in many ways is testament to the draw of the town and its key selling points, which we will highlight throughout the tour. Given the impressive developments appearing throughout Croydon and the number of deals completed and the huge investment pipeline transforming the town, it's easy to forget where we were 10 years ago when Develop Croydon was formed. We barely mentioned the riots now. Together, we seek to promote the regeneration of the borough and seek to promote the enjoyment of living and working in the borough. Croydon has always been a place for grand plans, even going back to the 60s when the flyover and the Wellesley Road was put in. But now we have plans that are fit for purpose. And more importantly, if you look at the original, I think 4 core plans, the East Croydon, West Croydon, College Green, Old Town, etc., they are now all becoming a reality at a surprising rate. We've got a swathe of new homes continuing to be delivered, and we're going to hear from Hub later. We've got truly impressive schemes under construction, or well, now completed in fact. The world's tallest modular tower, 2 brand new Grade A office developments have been delivered and fully occupied, and the next part of Ruskin Square is already pre-let to the government hub. Croydon Council and the GLA have played their part in enabling great public realm improvements, such as the ongoing facelift being given to the public realm from Southend to George Street, and new infrastructure improvements. Croydon has always celebrated its infrastructure with excellent rail links and tram, etc. But East Croydon Station is now planning a major rejuvenation and a proper concourse fit for the town it serves. There's loads more to come. For example, we have the imminent arrival of London South Bank University, one of our commercial agency teams, SHW's top deals in the Corona period. Today is also about challenging preconceptions that you may have about Croydon and demonstrating that not only has it massively changed for the better, but the best is still to come. And indeed, there's still opportunities waiting for the right parties, but they're going fast. For example, Leon 2, the final part of the Leon Quarter, 357 units with a resolution to grant planning is available now. You will see new schemes and developments in all sectors, but please don't hesitate to ask any specific questions. Your main guides for this afternoon will be Bonnie and myself, alongside Vanessa Clark, who will be sharing an insight into the commercial office market in Croydon. And as on our real life investor tours, we'll be joined by several key stakeholders along the way to tell us about their particular schemes. And these are very exciting to me, particularly. I'm sitting here in our meeting room looking at the hub development, which is nearing its topping out ceremony. So Tom Stoneham from Hub is going to tell us about that. And Richard Fenn, Director of Operations from London South Bank University, is going to tell us about what here at SHW we consider to be our most celebrated deal of the Corona period. But now I'd like to introduce Carol Squires, who's Head of Economic Development at the London Borough of Croydon, to give you a little welcome and insight from the inward investment point of view. Carol.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you to Develop Croydon for inviting me here today and giving me the opportunity to welcoming you to what I think is definitely the greatest borough in London. And excuse my enthusiasm, but I think by the time you finish the tour, you'll see that there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of your preconceived ideas will have already been challenged, as Richard highlighted earlier. So from a council perspective and inward investment, my team is very keen to make sure that we have growth. We're a pro-growth borough, but it's growth that benefits the whole economy. And I always say that Croydon is a borough of two halves. We have pretty much everything. We have park space, good housing. We have vibrant, interesting, exciting new developments happening in the town centre, which you'll all see today. We are a borough that's connected to airports, only a few minutes away, but also you can get into the city only a few minutes away. But also, you know, you can look south, you've got Brighton, you've got the M25. It's a really interesting borough, full of young people, full of skills, and full of talent. And, you know, of course I'm going to say that to you because I work for the Borough of Croydon. But genuinely, there has been so many changes over the last 4 years that I have been here. One of which, when you're looking at art and culture and music, and whether you like grime or not, you know, that drive has really brought in some significant opportunities for our businesses and our communities. I'm very proud to be seeing us as a borough of culture in 2023, and that really creates an exciting atmosphere that enhances these development opportunities, I believe. And the inquiries we get in what actually essentially at the moment is quite challenging times for many businesses, and we have still seen a fairly steady increase in interest in looking at all kinds of opportunities in Croydon, which is really great. That and welcoming LSBU into the borough, and the opportunities that will create from growing an ecosystem for our businesses and our residents and education, I think makes Croydon a really, really exciting offer. I would say from a Croydon Council position, not only do we have our award-winning planning team, who are really quite business focused, you also have my team, Inward Investment and Economic Growth, and we are very keen to talk to you. So our door is open. Our role as a team is to help facilitate things and to help connect you with opportunity. So we want to have a relationship with you. We are here. I'm not going to talk anymore because I think Croydon sells itself. But as I say, if anyone wants to talk to us at all, Bonnie has our details and we are here. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you very much, Carol. And that's also testament to the great way that Develop Croydon and the London Borough of Croydon have always worked together and support each other. So, as we come out of Box Park, you need to imagine that this is a proper little bit of walking tour. Just a few words on East Croydon and the surrounding area. As an occupier and investor, it's genuinely difficult to find a better connected hub. Croydon is almost unique in South London for its connections. It's quicker to get from Croydon to Victoria than it is from Victoria to Soho, or even Paddington or Covent Garden. But just some of the highlights on the connections: 15 minutes to central London, 9 central London stations, 24 trains per hour, which is why you never really need to bother with a timetable from East Croydon. 1 every 2 minutes. 14 services an hour to Gatwick. It's only 14 minutes, I think, to Gatwick as well. Overground service from West Croydon, so unique in that you have the heavy rail, overground, underground, and the tram and the bus, all in the same place at West Croydon. Direct road links into London and obviously the M25. And public transport via rail, bus and trams make Croydon unique. And now we also have an increased focus on cycling, and you'll notice that a lot of roads from Catherine Street and Dingle Road have all been put over to more cycle routes during this lockdown period. So our first development, just at East Croydon, which is now, which has been, you can just see there in the centre of the picture, is the Pocket scheme at Addiscombe Grove. It's Pocket's first development in Croydon, and I think that has pretty much topped out now. It's 100% affordable residential development, 21 stories high, and contains 112 discounted one-bedroom homes exclusively for first-time buyers only. And now I think Vanessa is going to tell us a bit about number 1.
Thanks, Richard. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start off talking about a few individual buildings, but in a short amount of time, I'll give you an overview of the statistics and what's happening with a pandemic-based office market locally in Croydon. But starting first with one of the most iconic buildings in Croydon, you can see in front of you the octagonal 1 Croydon, owned by Hermes. The building is 170,000 square feet of B1 offices. It's 269 feet high, offers a whole range of products. There is from split floors on the 3rd floor where 1,000 square feet can be made available, up to whole floors of around 7,500 square feet. Rental levels in the building are between £27.50 and £32.50 a square foot. It's home to Sussex Innovation, the Gym Group, and Atkins, amongst others. Just to the left, as you look at the screen, behind it are Knollys and Stevenson House. That's the block in the middle, in between the grey block and number 1. This is a UBS asset managed scheme, over 200,000 square feet, with very flexible space overlooking the railway station. And then just alongside the UBS scheme is Simpson House, which is part of the freshwater portfolio, which I'll be talking to you in a bit more detail shortly. As you come back towards East Croydon Station, just in between number 1 and East Croydon Station, is the Royal Mail former site, bought by Network Rail. This is part of the plans to upgrade East Croydon Station, and notably Network Rail are following through their objective to buy sites around the railway station, and they've just bought the Porter and Sorter pub, which adjoins the Royal Mail site, and they'll be undoubtedly delivering a mixed-use scheme, probably residential-led, on those 2 blocks. Adjacent to Mentor, which Richard is now going to talk about.
Yes, so moving north on the east side of the railway tracks from the buildings Vanessa just mentioned, Morello, which is the Mentor Red Rose scheme, the final part of it, which is the Twin Towers, which also allow for the bridge over the platforms to connect into Cherry Orchard Road, is about to commence. And will deliver another 445 new homes, including 107 new affordable ones. The Morello master plan includes landscaped cafe culture, public piazza type areas to improve the locality around the station, and a new gateway to East Croydon Station to benefit all those people living on the east side of the line. Just continuing on East Croydon Station, Network Rail are currently in consultation over their plans to unblock the railway bottleneck, which is just to the north of Croydon, and effectively the Croydon Bridge. This includes 2 new platforms at East Croydon to increase capacity, but also a series of effectively train flyovers in that junction where the lines split to London Bridge and Victoria. It'll provide a new gateway experience at East Croydon Station, and £4.4 million worth of improvements which are underway to the transport interchange. We started in Box Park, which is immediately to the west of East Croydon Station. It's the world famous pop-up mall, which was founded by Roger Wade and opened on effectively the last site of Ruskin Square in October 2016. It mirrors, but I would say improves upon the world's first pop-up mall in Shoreditch, and features 80 shipping containers that make 35 food and drink outlets. The official launch coincided with a large-scale music festival, which was a huge success with residents, workers and tourists alike. The 3rd scheme has now been completed at Wembley. And now Bonnie to cover a little bit about the trams.
Thanks, Richard. So hopefully everyone got a good view of the trams while we were up at the station. You can just see them there in the distance. Just a quick bit of background about them. The trams in Croydon opened in 2000 and is the only tram network in southern England. The nearest one's actually Birmingham, which is testament to the fact that Croydon's always been a forward-looking part of the world. They were taken over by TfL in 2008, and they carry around 30 million passengers each year. Their reliability is incredible. It's higher than 99%, and the customer satisfaction is the highest of any TfL mode of transport. They link Croydon to Wimbledon and to trains to the southwest from there, and to Beckenham Junction for trains to Kent. And they're a really convenient way to get up to the Pelly Way, which we'll be seeing in a bit too. A bit more recently, there's now 35 trams in operation. There has been a new platform built at Wimbledon, and there's 12 trams every hour between Croydon and Wimbledon. And there's a standard 7 to 8 minute frequency everywhere else. So yeah, a great little icon for Croydon, and yeah, a really reliable, convenient mode of transport to get around the town centre and beyond. Back to Richard.
Yeah, immediately opposite East Croydon Station is our world record tower. Tide Construction at 101 George Street have built the world's tallest modular tower. It is 44 stories, all built from effectively containers that arrived on the back of a lorry. It comprises 546 build to rent homes. The site has planning permission for 305, or had planning permission for 305 in the 31 and 16-storey buildings, but Tide improved upon this. They recently completed a 29-storey modular housing scheme in Wembley, which provides student accommodation. And they also have planning consent for an even taller scheme, which I think is 48 stories, on a site immediately behind that building. The investment vehicle has been bought by Greystar and Henderson. Over to Vanessa.
Thanks, Richard. Just to the east of the Tide Greystar building is 102 George Street, owned by Springer Nicholas. This is the home to Allianz at the moment, but there is a planning consent on the building, which will ultimately provide 250 residential units. To the other side of the Greystar building is part of the freshwater portfolio. Some years ago, Freshwater invested heavily in Croydon. They have 5 combined projects. The brick building you can see in front of you is 96 George Street. This building, together with an in-between building, St Matthew's House, which is a little bit lower than that, are the subject of a full planning application as we speak, to provide 155,000 square feet net of new offices. This follows a very successful pre-application situation with Croydon Borough Council, and it's just really exciting that Freshwater are now progressing through to a full application. Interestingly, as we've got 2 vacant buildings there, Tide Construction are making good use of them, and they have most of their operation housed in those buildings adjacent to that tower. Moving on, we're going to stop here just for a moment to run through a few key office stats. And I'll touch on where we are in terms of a pandemic market and what impact that is having on offices. Just to give you the basic stats on Croydon, its growth is predicated on the 60s and 70s, largely from government, and you'll see shortly that we're almost returning to that government focus on Croydon as an area in which to site staff. The office market itself is around 5.5 million square feet. Putting that into context, it's a similar size to Hammersmith. There's been a recent strong take-up, although 2019 was hit by moments of uncertainty and take-up wasn't as high as expected. But behind this, inevitably in Croydon, because it's driven by churn and lease events, a lot of lease renewals were taking place. So 2019 saw in excess of 100,000 square foot of lease renewals. Pipeline supply is quite limited. Ruskin Square is one of those main supplies where HMRC were an initial pre-let, and together with the announcement this year of the Home Office pre-let at 330,000 square feet, those two lettings really take themselves into a financial equation. They're not a pure property letting. It almost becomes a finance deal because of the length of lease, covenant and scale of that take-up. We believe that rents are, on both of those pre-lettings, are just below £35 per square foot. Availability at the moment stands at about 4.5% to 4.8% of stock. So a little in excess of 300,000 square feet, highest rents of £35 per square foot and yields at 5%. But just to touch on where we sit in the current market circumstances, there is no doubt there's a visible increase in supply coming to the market. That supply is quite mixed. Some of it is definitely as a response to the pandemic, but others, as in normal years, there are lots of lease events, expiries and renewals, and there's a combination of those. So typically some of the buildings we'll be seeing could be for one or other reason. Take up has inevitably slowed, other than the big deals to the Home Office and of course the LSBU letting. Other transactions, the demand is there, the inquiries are there, but converting them is taking quite a bit longer. Lease renewals in the background are continuing apace. So on the screen at the moment, you can see on the left-hand side, AMP House, owned by Schroders. This is a highly multi-let building. They put Nando's into the ground floor not so long ago, and they have a very good take-up at the moment. I'm not quite sure how the market is hidden them currently, but I anticipate that they'll have some mixed situations there as well. To the right of the AMP building, and you can see the scaffolding at the moment, is Renaissance House, an abstract development bought out of administration. Abstract went on to develop 100,000 square feet, large floor plates of 20,000 square feet, and they successfully managed to get the building fully let not far after practical completion. Rents at that point started at 22.50, 23.50, and that was around 2014. But since then, in a period of 5 years, the rent shot up by £12 per square foot. The highest rent being achieved is £34 per square foot. Following completion of the building, Abstract sold the investment to M&G for around £36 million. M&G have just only recently sold the investment to Royal London Asset Management for just under £60 million. So I think this is an example of how attractive new, highly specified office product is, and what can be achieved in rental growth and capital growth as well. Just crossing now across George Street to Ruskin Square, which is the, you can see we're just looking at the square in front of Building 1. Building 1 is the HMRC occupation. It's a Stanhope Schroeder's development. There are 5 proposed buildings, and I'll be talking about the Home Office shortly. So HMRC is plot 1, and the Home Office will take plots 2 and 3. And of course, Box Park at the moment is sitting on plot 5. HMRC moved into the building, taking the whole of 184,000 square feet, and Schroders are continuing with their successors, which I'll discuss in just a moment, whilst Richard talks about East Croydon Bridge.
Yes, just to say, we mentioned the East Croydon Bridge in the context of Mentor on the other side, but even while it's just been connecting the individual platforms and Caithness Walk here, it's amazing the effect that it's had in terms of improving the capacity of the station, but also in terms of shortening the distance to the station of lots of important buildings like Corinthian House and Carolyn House. And it also provides much needed lift access to each platform, and creates a new bit of public realm. And we look forward to it finally connecting through to Cherry Orchard Road.
Okay, thanks, Richard. You're just looking again at one side of Ruskin Square, where you can see the Vita residential block, which was the first phase delivered by Schroders. This contains 161 apartments, and it was delivered in partnership with Places for People. Going back to the offices on the other side of the Vita block, so planning permission has now been granted for Croydon for the latest government hub, with civil servants expected to move in 2024. The Government Property Agency, the GPA, secured a 25-year lease for the site, and the new hub will be the area's second, obviously, creating more of a government campus. It's the development of, the development will be over 10 floors, and will include ground floor retail units. The groundworks are anticipated to start on site before the end of this year, with the build of the main superstructure beginning in April 2021. Richard, I'm handing over to you just on Vista, the old job centre.
Yes, so the old job centre is immediately adjacent to Carolyn House, and it is currently on site. You can just see the piling rig there in the picture. It's a joint venture by Telereal Trillium and Bellway, and they're building 181 new homes across 2 towers, a short tower of 9 stories and a much larger one of 24, plus some flexible commercial space on the ground, first and second floors, which will include a new restaurant, cafe or bar, and next to Carolyn House.
Thanks, Richard. Just to the right of the former employment office is Carolyn House. This is a LaSalle investment ownership, asset management, and it was formerly 100,000 square feet of offices. So at the time the application went into the council, this was a part PD, part new build, as it has an extra 4 floors on the building. The scheme offers 183 apartments, and JJ Rattigan were the contractor. LaSalle still own this, and it looks much more beautiful than when it was an office building. Just to the right of Carolyn House is another slightly iconic building. It's a Mackay Securities ownership, Corinthian House. This is another Richard Seifert building alongside number 1 Croydon, and it's multi-let offices. They've had a lot of successes in this building, reaching up to £35 per square foot on some small deals in the building there. And as we move around the corner, I'm going to hand back to Richard on 1 Lansdowne.
So number 1 Lansdowne, which is there on the right, it has one of Croydon's most ambitious planning consents. It includes Marco Polo House, Voyager House, and the existing hotel and gym. The planning consent involves 2 towers, a 68 and 41 storey tower, linked by an 11-storey podium, and it will become the architectural centrepiece of Croydon. It's been designed by the world-renowned Piers Goff of CZWG Architects, and it will play a major role in addressing the need for housing and premium office space in Croydon, as well as creating a tourist destination to rival the Shard, with a public viewing gallery at the very, very top. And that those will be the highest bar and restaurant facilities in London. Vanessa, the Lansdowne building.
Okay, we'll just wait for the slide to come up. The Lansdowne building, arguably one of the best office buildings delivered in its time, and also very much ahead of its time. It was an 80s design, and at that stage buildings were pretty much over-specified. So at the moment, as a building in a pandemic market, it has, you know, a huge entrance area, highly secure, and everyone knows the building. It's asset managed by BlackRock, who are very proactive. At the moment, the third floor has come to the market as a result of some lease negotiations, and BlackRock are taking the opportunity to upgrade this floor and to provide flexible space, which means short form leases can be offered, and flexible space from a year and from 1,700 square feet up to 13,000 square feet, at an inclusive rental of £40 per square foot, including rent, service charge and insurance, plus new furniture can be added and fibre can be dealt with, making, you know, a move for occupiers very, very easy to take space in this building. At this point, I'm handing back to Bonnie, who's going to Richard rather, to talk about Purley Way.
Yes, I'll just very quickly whisk on the Purley Way. Normally, I'd be handing over to my fellow partner, Alex Gale, but he's gone to Wales for the week. So just to tell you a little bit about the industrial market. The industrial market is actually a greater number of square foot, 6 million square foot, than the office market. Everybody seems to know Croydon for its offices, but not necessarily the Purley Way. The main industrial estates are owned by property funds such as Hermes, DTZ Investors, LaSalle, Capital Industrial, IPIF and CBRE-GI. Industrial rents have nearly doubled in the last 5 years. Most of the industrial estates are now protected as strategic industrial areas, although the local authority is promoting some residential use over on the Purley Way. There's been no new speculative industrial development in Croydon for over 10 years until the schemes we're about to talk about. The main industrial area used to be the Purley Way, but the advent of out-of-town retail, such as IKEA, has pushed the kind of more traditional industrial uses back to Beddington Farm Road, Beddington Lane, Commerce Way, Progress Way, Imperial Way. And although this obviously is about Croydon, the industrial market does go into Sutton as well, in one area. Two of the new developments are in the London Borough of Sutton and Beddington Lane. which adjoins the main Croydon industrial area. And this is the redevelopment of the former Superdrug HQ. We heard about how they've moved into the central office area in Croydon. The development is by Aberdeen Standard Life and Prologis, and is due to complete their new speculative industrial development on 10 acres of Thames Water site as well, also in Beddington Lane. They've also recently bought a further 4.5 acres as an extension to the development. The market for industrial is very much focused on storage and distribution, and this has obviously played to the strengths during the corona pandemic because of the amount of deliveries that are coming from the Purley Way. Examples include Argos, 70,000 square foot letting against stiff competition from Amazon of the former Carlsberg depot in Marlow Way. Fruitful Office, 45,000 square foot letting, the largest letting of last year in Croydon, agreed by SHW. Topical Skincare, 25,000 square foot letting, again by Alex, on the Beddington Lane Industrial Estate, which is an online party planner and beauty business, apparently. One interesting fact is that, which is sort of the changing fate of retail really on the Purley Way, is that the Toys R Us site, obviously a retail warehouse, has now been let to Amazon. So it's almost like it's changing back, and the warehouse and distribution is fighting back against the retail. Valley Park Retail, home to IKEA, the View Cinema and shops including Boots next, is just beside IKEA. Obviously we have one of the main IKEAs around London, and the IKEA chimneys, part of Croydon B power station, provide a landmark for miles around. Croydon Council purchased the Colonnades, which was primarily a retail and leisure park. But again, some of the leisure premises have now been let to Wicks, so that is changing as well. And Affinity, Aberdeen have two 23,000 square foot new build units. Quoting rents are now £16.50. The unit 1 let to the Peloton, and unit 2 is under offer. Prologis Park, Beddington, 213,130 square feet of industrial space available. The agents are Savills, CBRE and Dowley Turner. It's ready for occupation in the spring. And then there's a phase 2 where SHW are sole agents. Stewart Plastics, which was formed in 1945 and supplied technical plastic mouldings for gardening purposes, is adjacent to IKEA. And IKEA plans to purchase the Stewart Plastics home, which will help it redevelop its site and improve the access into Valley Park, and also develop some new industrial units. Other occupiers include Booker's, Matalan, and one of London's biggest, Mercedes. We have seen some residential redevelopment through the PD scheme at Shackleton Gate, but not that much at the moment. There are residential schemes around the new swimming pool near Five Ways and so on, but predominantly this is an industrial area. And now back to Vanessa as we come back into the town centre with Interchange.
Thanks, Richard. So Interchange, again, probably another iconic building, originally occupied by BT in 3 vertical towers. So CBRE investors bought this some years back and had a plan to refurbish. And they actually sold their interest to Canmore Carville for 28.5 million, who then proceeded to spend another chunk of a similar amount on refurbishing the building and creating it into a horizontal offer. Adding in, you can see the large glazed reception area. The building is in total 184,000 square feet. The refurbishment was completed in January 2014. It's on the doorstep of West Croydon Station. And an interesting fact about it, because I've walked the space, it's got 9 subterranean levels of car parking, in all 450 car parking spaces. I think by a sea, probably the best offer in Croydon of car parking. We're going to be jumping about a bit in terms of buildings on Wellesley, and I'm just going to hand back to Richard to talk about St Michael's Square.
St Michael's Square is another very important coronavirus time deal. This site, which basically comprises some very run-down shops and a small locally listed facade that you can just see at the base of the right-hand tower. It was granted resolution to grant planning back in 2015, and it's 2 towers, a 25-storey one and a 21-storey one, 232 units, and 947 metres squared of commercial space, and it's designed to create a new public piazza there and expose the listed Grade 1 listed church, which at the moment is quite difficult to actually see. Now, we've managed to do a deal with London Square and Carillion, who are based in Interchange that Vanessa was just talking about. And they have now agreed to purchase that site. A couple of conditions left to sign off, and they will hopefully be putting a spade in the ground in the early part of 2021. Now we go on to Saffron Square, which is opposite Interchange on Wellesley Road. We're sort of at the base of it now with that Tesco's. Saffron Square really set the bar for residential redevelopment in Croydon. It started in the last recession, development by Berkeley Homes. It's iconic, love it or hate it, but purple lilac tower is 43 stories high. And then you've got a podium level within which is a public open space and retail at the bottom. You've got the Tesco's, you've got cafes, a restaurant, gyms and some offices. There are 791 residential units, ranging from 1-bedroom apartments right up to some incredible multi-storey penthouses right at the top. It's fully sold, and it moved the amount per square foot for residential from an average in the low 300s up to well in excess of 600 over its period of selling. And now back to Vanessa for Voyager House.
Thanks, Richard. So just moving along Wellesley Road, so walking back towards the town centre, there should be a slide coming up which shows us, there we go. So on the left there are Apollo and Luna, which I'm touching on shortly, but the brick building with a glazed wing to it is Voyager House. It was formerly owned by LaSalle Investment Management and sold to Guildhouse Rose Pride for around 10.25 million, and it forms part of the One Lansdowne Road planning and development. Across the road, just immediately opposite from Voyager House, are 2 buildings, both on the market now. I don't know whether we've got a slide coming up on that, hopefully we do. So one, here we go. One on the left as we get to it is 9 to 11 Wellesley Road, which is the former HSBC building, and immediately next door to it, and it's not that slide, is Meridian House, which both buildings are empty. So these are not a COVID supply being delivered to the market. These were more about lease events, with Meridian being vacated some time ago by I think Mott's were in there, and 9 to 11 Wellesley Road was HSBC, but those are 2 buildings that have hit the market due to lease events. And as I'm not sure we're going to get to those slides, I think, should we go back to Delta Point so Richard can talk about the residential conversion?
So Delta Point was for a long time, I think it has now been exceeded, but for a long time it was the largest PD development in the country. owned by Criterion Capital. It was formerly the headquarters of BT, but Criterion have refurbished it into 404 residential 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, which are all privately rented. It was a 367,630 square foot development. It's completed, the residents have moved in. It provides, oh actually, sorry, no, it's now exceeded. It now provides 584 MyFlat branded, or part of the MyFlat branded private residential apartments, which Criterion own in Croydon. And Criterion have another couple of buildings in Croydon, including Bedford House and Canterbury House. Delta Point was also famous for being Gotham Hospital in Batman. And now over to Bonnie.
Great. So just a bit of background about, as we're coming down Wellesley Road, the Whitgift Centre runs the full length almost of this view on our right hand side. Unfortunately, a bit close to it to be able to get it in its full glory, but the Whitgift Centre is, I'm sure most of you have heard of it, is a large shopping centre and office development in the centre of Croydon. It opened in stages between 1968 and 1970 and comprises 1,300,000 square foot of retail space and has more than 140 outlets. It was the largest covered shopping development in Greater London until the opening of Westfield London at White City in 2008. And Rich is going to give us a quick update on what is going to be happening with the scheme going forward.
Well, obviously one of the big questions of the Croydon regeneration story is what happens next for Westfield. So the current consented scheme was a £1.4 billion scheme, 1.5 million square foot of state-of-the-art retail, leisure, restaurants and so on. Westfield was bought by Rodamco Uniball at the end of 2017. And obviously Hammerson are focusing on restructuring their portfolio. So clearly it's difficult times, but Westfield and the joint owners, Hammerson, are working with the London Borough of Croydon to provide a new consented scheme more suitable to the demands of retail at the moment. Obviously that is an ongoing project. So Vanessa, over to Apollo and Luna.
Again, the buildings that are very well known to Croydon, Apollo and Luna, Apollo being on the right, Luna on the left, home at the moment to the Home Office, owned by Hobie. The complex in its entirety is 450,000 square feet, and the passing rent at the moment is £12.50 per square foot. Interestingly enough, there's a considerable amount of land around both buildings, and at some point in time, given the diminishing lease situation and the move of the Home Office to Ruskin Square, this could really form an interesting redevelopment stroke refurbishment project, hopefully to bring new life to that part of Wellesley Road as well. Across the road, we're going to head back to Electric House and LSBU. Richard?
Yes, so Electric House, my colleague Holly Purvis worked relentlessly on this during the Corona period, and we were absolutely delighted when London South Bank University exchanged. It's a Grade 2 listed building. It's a very interesting building. The fossils in the marble around the entrance are absolutely brilliant. Starview Estates submitted plans for its comprehensive refurbishment, but these are the plans for its conversion into a university are now consented. And I'm pleased, very pleased, to be able to hand over to Richard Fenn of London South Bank University to tell us a little bit more.
Thank you, Richard. I'm Richard Fenn. I'm one of the Director of Operations at the university. So just to kind of echo on what Richard's already told you, it's kind of 50,000 square feet. We've got planning permission for the change, and also it's a Grade 2 listed building. So it couldn't be any more challenging to deliver for September next year. As a university, we tend to focus on kind of applied and technical education with a focus on kind of vocational, getting our students jobs afterwards. So we've been awarded Times Higher Education Awards for the past 2 years for our employability rates as a university, and we actively look to engage with local businesses as part of the remit of what we deliver. We also focus on kind of achieving ERDF and other grant awards, and again, those are done in combination with kind of local businesses. The campus itself is going to have a dual focus, both on kind of health and social care, primarily nursing, but also a chiropractic clinic that will be opening up in the basement of the building, and also our business school. So that will be business management and accounting and finance. Getting all that ready for September next year is going to be interesting. I think as a university, it's important to say that we have a long-term commitment to Croydon. We're moving down here, well, we're moving part of our operation down here with the focus on kind of staying here and certainly growing up our business in this particular area. It won't be any surprise to kind of colleagues from Croydon that you have a growing young population and they need to access higher education. At the moment, there is a small higher education offer in the borough that's kind of primarily centred around Croydon College, but we see LSBU as kind of coming in and augmenting that offer. In terms of the design of the building itself, there's three main entrances to the main campus. If I go on too long, just wave at me, Richard, and I'll shut up quickly. But the focus on kind of getting wider industry into the building is important for the university. So we've got one entrance on Wellesley Road itself, which will be our enterprise offer, which is where we'll host kind of local businesses that link into our curriculum particularly well. Will also be the main entrance for our chiropractic clinic. We'll have the main entrance there, which is the Art Deco kind of circular room, which again, returning that to its former glory, is one of the kind of the preconditions for planning permission. And then we have a third option, which you can just see in the gate towards the right-hand side, which is the area to the entrance to the courtyard area, which used to have a water fountain in it. And again, we're returning that to kind of use for wider public access as well, and to have a cafe associated with that, just so that it can act as an interchange between students, alumni, staff, and wider business as well. So it's about bringing Croydon into the university and allowing us to work with you hand in hand as closely as possible. Thank you.
Super. Well, thank you very much, Richard, and we look forward to seeing it. So now, immediately opposite Electric House, we have the quarters. The quarters was one of the early PD conversions. It's 151 high specification studios, again all rented out. It's the epitome of contemporary metropolitan living, and a sort of short-term rental situation. It's managed, and it also includes a gym, and you can stay for as little as 3 months, or obviously a lot longer. Immediately to the right is a site that was formerly Cambridge House, which we sold to Notting Hill, who secured planning for a 27-storey tower, which will comprise 90 flats. And work, obviously Cambridge House has been demolished, because you can see by the gap, but work on the groundworks has now started. And now, Bonnie, Croydon College.
Oh, Richard, I think it's me. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Vanessa,
sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, easy to jump about on this. So the slide directly in front of you, just to the left, the slightly grey building with a darker grey core. We haven't mentioned that. That's Southern House. It's owned by LCR, and I believe LCR are in the process of discussing a sale of the building. It's 200,000 square feet, and it's got quite a big footprint. So that's perhaps one to watch. To the right of Southern House, the brick building and the glazed tower you see in front is a complex which is called Norfolk House. So it's part offices, part travel lodge hotel, and part retail. The offices are approximately 40,000 square feet. Classically, the retail, which stretches along not only Wellesley Road but into George Street, includes Waitrose. It's owned by Kennedy Wilson, and they're undoubtedly looking at their plans. It's probably underdeveloped if you look at it and the varying heights of it. It's another example that there are still some very good opportunities in Croydon to be considered. I'm going to hand back now to Bonnie, who's going to talk about Croydon College.
Thanks, Les. So Croydon College is the glass building and the brick building you can see on the screen now. It houses over 8,000 students a year, and it's one of the largest and most successful providers of both further and higher, as Richard mentioned, education courses in the South East. It recently announced a new partnership from 2021 with the University of Roehampton, including a BSc adult nursing degree and a new state-of-the-art nursing suite. And this is just part of a great development in terms of the creative campus plans that Croydon's had for a while, and Croydon's hoping to attract a lot more university presence into the town centre to try and blend the living experience in Croydon with the student experience, and as Richard mentioned, help out the younger population demographics that Croydon has. We have a really young population, so it's great to have all of these universities coming into the town centre. Around the college is the Fairfield Master Plan, and we'll be looking at Fairfield Halls in just a second. Croydon Council's first virtual planning committee approved this scheme, which is about to come up on the screen, a brick by brick scheme. Brick by Brick is the council's owned development company. The scheme will include 421 homes, shops, open public space, and an improved town centre pedestrian access, and it will help link this Croydon College Green through to the East Croydon station, which diagonally comes up behind the homes. The scheme will help pay back the 42 million restoration spent on Fairfield Halls that we'll see in a second, and that was a really great development, again, as Rich said, during lockdown. Behind us is the Queen Square development, which is an RNF property scheme. RNF are one of the largest real estate developers in China and are listed in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and are the world's largest owner of 4- and 5-star luxury hotels. And fun fact that was mentioned in our last tour, they also have their own football team. So a nice tie into our palace roots. Queen Square is the name used for the land surrounding St George's Walk between Park Street, the High Street, Park Lane and Catherine Street. We'll see some of those in a second. RNF purchased the site in 2017, and phase 1 of the development includes the conversion and extension of St George's House, which is the former Nestle Tower, currently being shown, into 290 flats, which will be called Highgrove Tower. This already has planning permission and work is on site, and RNF Properties appointed Ardmore to complete the £100 million first phase. Queen Square Phase 2 involves the redevelopment of most of the site into a new town square opposite the town hall, along with a range of commercial uses, which will include shops, restaurants, offices and other workspaces on the ground floor with new homes above, and there's quite a strong focus on makerspace. Croydon Council granted permission for the demolition works in September 2018 to allow for the construction of Phase 2 to begin as quickly as possible, and the emerging scheme for Phase 2, which you can see in these CGIs, is currently being discussed with the council and wider stakeholders before the formal planning application is submitted. RNF support for Croydon Council's bid to become London's first creative enterprise zone, and their plans for Queen Square are intended to support and enhance the borough's growing arts and creative scene, as I mentioned about the makerspace. And obviously a lot of the uses of the future new town square will be around creative and cultural uses. Much of the development will be residential, but the ground floor could provide a mix of uses, which also includes some gallery space, and that could tie into Seeger's House, which we'll see in a second, which is a beautiful building on the left-hand side of the scheme. Very confusing to walk everyone at the same time as talk. So the next view that you can see at the moment on the left is Fairfield Halls. Croydon Council's refurbishment of Fairfield Halls is the first phase in the development of a new cultural quarter in Croydon's town centre, and a major milestone in the town's ongoing regeneration. It's a new £10 million scheme which provides the perfect setting for the revamped venue. So the £10 million scheme is the public realm space alongside, and developing Queen's Gardens, as I mentioned, as a route through from East Croydon. The refurbishment of the halls has been funded by the development from the surrounding land, like the brick by brick scheme that we saw, as well as contributions from Coast Capital LEP and the Mayor of London's Creative Enterprise Zone scheme. The team on refurbishment, as well as the architects on the site, are micro architects who had joined us for the last tour, and Gleeds were the project managers on the site. Judy Dench formally rededicated the Ashcroft Playhouse at the Fairfield Halls to her friend and Croydon-born fellow actress Dame Peggy Ashcroft, at the reopening of the venue last year, and obviously currently it's a difficult time for the halls, but they are providing some fantastic meanwhile uses during this time, and as you pan around you can just get a sense of how the halls fit into the Croydon master plan. Now I'm going to hand back to Richard to talk about Hub and introduce another one of our guest speakers. So Richard.
Yes, outside the windows of my office, I've been watching all through lockdown when I was in the office on my own, the construction of the scheme on Queen's Gardens and the former site of Taverner House. And I have to say, I don't think it stopped. It might have slowed a bit in the middle, but it never stopped. So now I'll hand you over to Tom Stoneham to explain what's been going on.
Thank you, Richard. And yes, you're right, we didn't actually stop during the COVID period. So the Queen's Quarter is a 513 home development delivered by Hub in partnership with Bridges Fund Management, who are the UK's largest social impact fund. It revives the former site of Taverner House, which is the council's offices, and the development is designed by HMM, who are Sterling Prize winning architects. The project received planning permission in May 2017 after a very quick 9-month process, working very closely with the council's planning department, which is a testament to their team. So in the development, there are 4 buildings which range between 13 and 36 stories. These are arranged around a publicly accessible courtyard, and they all share a very similar aesthetic in terms of the design. So despite the fact that we've got 51% affordable housing with 3 different types of affordable housing, all of the buildings have very similar design with only slight changes in the facade colours, kind of accenting the different blocks. Block 2 will be handed back to the council and will be known as Malcolm Wicks House, and that will be held as social rent for local families. Block 3 and Block 4 will both sold to L&Q, and Block 3 will be the first to complete and will be shared ownership. And Block 4, which is the closest one to us here, the second tallest block, will be London Living Rent Block, which is a new GLA initiative. And so the rents will be at 80% of market rent. The largest block in the background is Block 1, which will be owned by L&G and is part of their build to rent fund. And so that will be 251 1, 2 and 3 bed apartments, and we'll have a rooftop garden, communal facilities on the ground and first floor. But importantly for us, we think that this development is all about opening up the gardens that sit opposite it. So as part of the planning process, we engaged very closely with as many local residents as possible, and 50 of those residents were involved in a kind of communal design exercise with our architects and our landscape architects grants associates. And following that process, where we had a number of workshops, we then kind of proposed a design to the council for them to buy into, with a real emphasis put on child's play, a new cafe, and the biodiversity of the planting. And for us, it is really important to kind of create a place here. We don't just want to create a residential development that doesn't have somewhere that the residents can go out and enjoy, and also to kind of bring the Queen's Gardens back to the place that it should be. There's obviously a lot of development happening around it, and so we feel like this is a really, really good part of the city centre where you can have green open space. We also think that from a hub perspective, just shows that you can engage with local residents to have a meaningful impact on the development process, and that consultation is really important. And so we're always kind of keeping in touch with people and keeping them up to date on how things are going. In terms of the construction project itself, 3 of the 4 blocks have now topped out, and the last block, the tallest one, will be topping out in early November, all being well. And then the interior fit out of the apartments and the facade installation, as you can see, is underway there. I think has actually progressed quite a bit further since these photographs, but they're all in hand, and doing very well considering the climate that we're in and having to juggle different suppliers. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tom. And now over to Bonnie.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for being with us. So coming across the road and looking back at the Queen Square site, just the building I mentioned, Seeger's House, is the building, the low building on the right. This is a Grade 2 listed building. It was a gas company showroom and office built in between 1939 and 41 in the modern style, and it's now planned to be part of the wider R&F development of Queen Square. They will be moving their showroom into this space at some point, and then the plans are potentially for it to be used as a gallery, as it has been recently anyway, as there's been some street art murals in places, the meanwhile use on the right hand side. So coming down into the heart of the town centre and a bit more of the sort of social lifestyle area, I'm just going to give you a bit of insight into some of the highlights in the High Street and in what's sort of become Croydon's new nightlife area. So coming down to the Croydon Clock Tower, not our nightlife venue, but a 19th century town hall which houses the library, the David Lean Cinema with a regular programme of art house and independent films. The David Lean just celebrated its 25th anniversary this March. And this building also has the Croydon Museum in it, which is an interesting place to visit when you're in town, and has lots of changing contemporary exhibitions too. And the Braithwaite Hall, which is importantly home to the Croydon Beer Festival. On the right hand side of the clock tower is the Spread Eagle pub. It has a small 50-seater theatre upstairs, which shows fringe events, comedy, theatre, live sport, and it also has fantastic pies. Moving on to the High Street, also I'll just mention some of the street art that we're going to see as we go through. Croydon's had a really great mural collection for quite a long time now, and it's definitely worth having a walk around some of these central streets to see some of the artworks that have been brought in from all over the world. There's one actually on the corner of the High Street just behind us here, which unfortunately was under scaffolding when we took these pictures, but on the left there's an amazing mural of Winston Churchill, which an artist flew in from Brooklyn to put the piece together on the side of the building, and there's a lot of works by this artist as well all the way down Park Street. So underneath that street art, Five Guys moved into Croydon not too long ago. That was a great new addition showing confidence in the town, and they came in opposite Grant's Entertainment Centre, where we also recently had a new Turtle Bay take one of the retail units. Grant's is a 10-screen view cinema, and also in a really beautiful historic building, which used to be a haberdashery department store. You can still see the really beautiful old frontages above us. As you turn around as well, sadly one of the places that we normally visit on our real life investor tours is the Almshouses, which is the small building you can see at the beginning of the main High Street. So the Almshouses is one of Croydon's sort of historic gems. A bit of background: for several hundred years in the past, the Archbishops of Canterbury had a residence at Old Palace in Croydon, which is just down Church Street, where they would spend their summer months and stop on their travels between Canterbury and Lambeth. And seeing the suffering and poverty caused by things like war and bad harvest in the area, Archbishop John Whitgift sought and received permission from Queen Elizabeth I to build a hospital and a school in Croydon. And in 1596, he laid the foundation stone for the Hospital of the Holy Trinity, which is now known as the Almshouses. So it's a Grade 1 listed building right at the beginning of our High Street. You sort of could miss it as you walk down, but it's one of the things that we love to take people into, and you can actually have a tour on the Whitgift Foundation's website of inside the building if you want to have a look. It's very beautiful. So for the Whitgift Foundation is the charity that now manages the Almshouses, and also several other care homes in Croydon, and they also manage 3 schools, and they have one of the largest bursary programmes in the country, and brings thousands of young people to an outstanding education in the foundation schools, which are Old Palace just down Church Street, Trinity, which is out towards Shirley, and Whitgift, which is down in South Croydon. So as we move down to Surrey Street, another historic gem of Croydon, Surrey Street, there have been records of a market on the site dating back to the 13th century. A market may have existed in Croydon as early as the Anglo-Saxon period, but the earliest certain record is from between 1236 and 37. Again, another hub of street art. There's some beautiful installations down here. There's a Lauren Baker lighter installation, a Blue Boy sculpture, Rich Simmons murals, including on the historic Pump House building, and lots of artwork by Art and Believe. But also this street has a great F&B offer. There's cocktail bars, restaurants, art and craft, which is a bar with craft beers and Prosecco on tap. So yeah, definitely a place to head more in the evening, and it's surrounded by some great residential schemes as well. So nice to bring some more people back into the town centre. And there's also a couple of new schemes on this street. So I'm going to hand over to Richard to talk about Beam House Yard, which is down on the left.
Yes, Beam House Yard was formerly called Matthews Yard, and it's the site was a meat market, shoe shop, gym, and Follies End Church on the upper floors. And Regent Land secured planning consent to demolish it and replace it with 60 flats, which are being brought forward by PA Housing, and some commercial units, which will include a restaurant, cafe, and a new events space called the Beam House. And that, I mean, now, well, you can see actually from the first picture that it's covered in scaffolding, but it's now about halfway through being demolished. And it works because of the change in levels, so that you have a nice ground floor access from Pump House Yard, but also from Surrey Street itself on an upper level. So Bonnie, Ludicrous, I think.
Yeah, so again, just showing a bit more about the lifestyle and places to enjoy and spend time in Croydon, giving you a bit of insight into living and working here. Ludicrous is this retail unit down here, which is an award-winning board game cafe with over 1,000 games, and also serves some great food. There's also the Green Dragon pub on the right, which is one of Croydon's many fantastic pubs. As we come down towards South Croydon, the offer continues. So we have Green Dragon House behind us, which, as I mentioned, there's a lot of residential units around here. This was originally an inspired asset scheme, and before it was residential, it was also the Black Sheep Bar, which was where the music genre dubstep was reportedly invented. So as Carol mentioned earlier, one of Croydon's claims to fame about being a home of new and up-and-coming music. Some of the other units down this street, unfortunately, obviously, we took these pictures early in the morning, so they weren't open yet, but Coffee Shotter is a great cafe tomorrow. Again, a great place to work as a shared workspace, and it's also upstairs as a world-class tech hub, which offers co-working office spaces. It was opened in May 2016 and supported by the GLA, and is also part of Davies House. It's got a really impressive open plan interior with hot desking, super fast broadband, and an event space. So yeah, a very great addition to this part of town, and next door to it is a VR bar, so all very up and coming and trendy down here. As we move down towards the flyover, a final thing on the leisure and entertainment list is Fun House, which is a pool, ping pong and ball pit venue. And also behind us, there's Memory Box, which is a fantastic cocktail bar. So as you head down towards the right, if we did carry on down this street, you would come to the restaurant Quarter 2, which is one of Croydon's hidden gems. It's down in Southend. It's the home of the Croydon Food Festival, which is the largest festival that happens in Croydon, and it also houses about 40 fantastic restaurants, including local favourites such as Bugatti's, Young Brasserie, and yeah, it's a great addition to the town centre. And I'll hand over to Vanessa as we come back up in the loop towards Bernard Weatherall House.
Thanks, Bonnie. So as we go up over the flyover, you can see the glazed building just at the background of this particular photograph. This is Bernard Weatherall House, and just in front of it, although you can't see because of the trees, is Davies House. So back in 2012, 2013, Croydon Council set up the Urban Regeneration Vehicle, one of the few, I believe, successful local authority vehicles, jointly with John Lang. And at that point, they had the land, they needed to replace Taverner House. They bought Davies House, which provided an essential part of the development to BW House. And the building you can see now is 240,000 square feet of B1 Grade A specified building. It houses the whole of Croydon Council, who provide a range of services from there. The council moved in 2013. They've got a 200 car space car park underneath Bernard Weatherall House, and Davis House alongside it has partly retail frontage. It's Tomorrow is one under the ownership of that particular part, and Davis House itself is a range of multi-let office users, some Croydon Council, but others involved as well. Bonnie, I'm handing back to you on the residences.
Yeah, so as we come up the flyover, you can't quite see, but on the other side of the flyover is another PD conversion of Impact House, which was originally refurbished for retention of officers, but then was sold to Inspired for 24 million and now provides 197 apartments within a £90 million scheme. So it was recently taken over by EG Real Estate Advisors, and they're currently selling the units, which now are just behind the hub scheme up here. And also next to that, Richard, is Edridge Road.
Yeah, so immediately behind Impact House is a scheme on Edridge Road that now comprises 130 apartments owned by Sloan International. And that'll be an iconic 23-storey tower of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments with on-site facilities, including a residence gym, etc. And beyond that is Leon House, or the Leon Quarter, which I mentioned before. There's still a scheme that is consented for 357 residential apartments that is available at the moment if anybody's interested. And I think finally in the picture, yeah, so this is where I'm sitting, 69 Park Lane, which is owned by CEG and is undergoing quite a major refurbishment, which includes complete reglazing, a new cafe, reception, and a gym in the basement. Apart from SHW on the 7th floor, we've got the main anchor tenant, which is LV, and then the bottom couple of floors are mainly vacant at the moment, awaiting the completion of the refurbishment, where they're going to be quoting £37.50 per square foot. And that really concludes the tour. I mean, it says here, final thoughts for the future from Richard and Vanessa. So I don't know whether you want to go first, Vanessa.
Yeah, happy to jump in. I think we're living in a period of uncertainty at the moment. It's not stopping investment as we speak, and I'm not seeing rents plummet for vacant offices which are coming back to the market. But I think it's fair to say the office market is uncertain until we know what's going to happen over the next few months. And I think probably until next spring, obviously, I think we're going to be facing more of the same. I anticipate with September quarter day, the end of the furlough period at the end of October, aside from the normal churn that Croydon experiences, that we may well be seeing some more space coming back because of COVID. The one thought I want to leave with everyone is that Croydon has started very successfully to attract occupiers from central London. And as a satellite area from which central London occupiers can give a quick and easy home as an office to staff living nearby, it couldn't be better positioned in terms of its infrastructure, the scope of availability that's available, and the range of amenities. So I think as a future for Croydon, I'm extremely positive about its future. And I think the office market, no one's going to work completely from home. There will always be an office market. And I think Croydon's in a great position to provide a home to occupiers. Over to you, Richard.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Vanessa. And I think, you know, very obviously challenging times and so on, but it was interesting to see quite a few of the people who've got disaster recovery centres in Croydon were actually opening them up and bringing staff in, you know, rather than sending them into central London. So you could, in this current time, actually see Croydon benefiting. You know, we are the second greenest London borough. You know, I have never seen the parks so fully occupied as they were in the lockdown. You know, and we have a fantastic distribution park across the borough, and they were absolutely mobbed. You know, they were really, really well used. And I think as a place to live, our position, you know, to coin the local authorities' phrase, the urban edge and what have you, that suddenly plays really well given the current travel issues and restrictions. You know, the ability for people to get outside, the ability to work close to where you live, all play very well. And the only other thought I had is it's very, very easy seeing all these schemes, you know, the majority of which are residential, to think that Croydon is just awash with new flats all over the place. But I would point out the comments that we've made about tenure, in that, you know, the tallest modular tower, the biggest PD scheme, you know, the biggest tower on the hub scheme. They're all private rented sector. You know, we've talked about pocket, you know, rented sector again and again. And actually, at the moment, there's only really 2 schemes with brand new open market flats available, which is the residue of Leon 1 and another scheme that we haven't mentioned this time on the old Sea Cadets headquarters. So I don't think Croydon is going to suffer from oversupply, and people will still need somewhere to live. And why not live somewhere that's well connected, that you can get in and out of easily with plenty of parks. And that's my final thoughts. Just back to Bonnie to wrap up.
Brilliant. Thank you both, and thank you everyone for joining. Obviously now we've dropped Richard back at his office very conveniently. We'll take everyone else back to the station for your 10-minute or however quick it may be trip back to central London, or back out again to Gatwick or beyond. So yeah, thank you all for being with us. As we mentioned, we've had one of these investor tours in May, and this is our second and final one for the year. But if you are interested in more content about what's happening in Croydon and hearing from other stakeholders, we have a panel debate taking place as part of Real Estate Live UK in the first week of October. And we also have the Develop Croydon annual conference taking place virtually as a full day event in November, which should be a really good event, lots of interactive content and lots of other people to hear from about different schemes, some of which we haven't even covered in this site because there's so much going on. So yeah, hopefully that gave you some useful insight into Croydon, and we'd be really pleased to pick up any conversations about additional information you might be looking for and about getting more involved with Develop Croydon. So yeah, thank you for being with us, and we hope to see you at one of our other events very soon.